Welcome, I'm Joy Baglio. This is Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop and a Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop reading, but it is also what we are calling a pre-AWP reading, which is that it is featuring the panelists of a panel that will be at AWP this year in Baltimore on March. Actually, I don't believe I know a date. It was Friday during the AWP week. This panel will be happening with these featured writers. The panel is called Speculating the Machine: How Fiction Writers Are Rendering a New AI Reality. So just a couple housekeeping notes before we get started in the reading. So if you're unfamiliar with us, Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop is the organization that I began that is hosting this event, and I will share some stuff in the chat about what we do. But we essentially have workshops and free public different readings, events, things that we host, community gatherings, sometimes writing retreats. Pretty much everything we do is virtual, but we sometimes have a in-person event. We're actually sponsoring a AWP offsite reading in Baltimore called Nevermore, a haunted literary reading. It's also featuring Sequoia Nagamatsu, who is here, also featured, and as well as featuring Carmen Maria Machado, Matthew Landsberg, Jenna Rose Nethercott, Jennifer Pullen, and myself will be reading speculative haunted fiction. Also, if you are a person interested in writing workshops, our 10-month manuscript program at Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop is currently still open for a few workshop sections. So if you're looking for a longer course of study, you can investigate that on our website. Everything can be found at pioneervalleywriters.org or .com. So a little bit about this event, this particular reading. The idea behind this was to bring the panelists together, the people that will be on Speculating the Machine in Baltimore in March, and to allow us to have some time to read our work a little more so we can kind of hear each other's work and the ideas that are coming up in each other's work and what we choose to read. We'll be reading just for a minute on the panel, but this is a little more time. And also, we thought it would be really nice to share it with the public and make it a public event. I will also, just because this gives some context, I will read our panel description that will be happening in March. So here's the description. As AI and emerging technologies become widespread, fiction writers are tasked with imagining and questioning the future possibilities and implications through narrative. From monitoring systems to algorithmic consciousness, robotic companions to AI-run cities, this panel brings together fiction writers who have thought and written deeply about these topics. We'll discuss the reasons we portray AI and other technologies in fiction and the challenges of doing so in a quickly changing world. So for today, we're each going to read from a piece of fiction that features or explores some aspect of AI or futuristic technology or something in that realm. And I'll also make it really clear, we are writers that write about these things, and we do not, it's very different than using this technology to write, which we do not do. So just to make that super clear, because I realize people might be coming to this kind of hearing the word fiction and AI in one sentence and not really knowing. So just to be clear, we are writing about these ideas. Last thing I will say is I will read everyone's bio before they read, but then authors, we can share a little bit more before we read about the ideas and the context that we're writing in and anything we want the audience to know about the stuff we're exploring. We were kind of doing that a little before we opened it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good and interesting, and I want people to see this. So we'll pick up where we left off with that. All right, let me start by introducing our first reader. Erika Swyler is the best-selling author of the critically acclaimed novels We Lived on the Horizon, Light from Other Stars, and the Book of Speculation. Her writing has appeared in the Writer's Chronicle, Literary Hub, Vita, the New York Times, People, and elsewhere. She lives on Long Island, New York with her husband and a mischievous house rabbit. Visit her online at erikaswyler.com. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Erika, and remove myself.
Hello. Hi. Thanks everybody for coming. So I'm probably going to read a little bit to you from my most recent novel, We Lived on the Horizon. Paperback is out in April if you ever feel like Googling it and pre-ordering and doing a writer a solid. That's a thing you can do. I'm writing about AI and focusing particularly on what it is for a machine intelligence to be in a body, because the most impacting thing in the human life is the experience of the body. I'm really fascinated by the trauma of having a body. Why it is like everything we experience comes through the body, everything emotionally, everything physically, all of it is through this vessel that we're in. And every time I ever saw, an android in writing, it was just immediately assumed that machine intelligence adapts perfectly fine to having a body. And machine intelligence is, in some ways, really, really broad. A machine brain is not at all a human brain. So I got really fascinated with the idea of what clashes when you take a very, very large consciousness and put it into something that it completely has no way of understanding how to render different types of sensations. It has no idea how to process, and what that does to its intelligence, to the concept of humanity, and how that relates to a world at large, which is kind of the polar opposite of what's happening with this AI technology now, which I just want to float out there is not really artificial intelligence. It's very, very advanced pattern learning with a huge data set. So there's a big difference from what you've seen in sci-fi and what you'll see in speculative fiction to what's happening now. And these things I think we can approach differently. So I'm going to read a short section from the middle of the book, which focuses a lot on that body aspect. The things you need to know, we're in a large city that is governed by an artificial intelligence that's called Parallax. And the very wealthy upper class in the city are called sainted, and they all have house systems, which are sort of like think uh, think Google, Alexa, Siri, all of that, but for your entire home, and it is the building as well. And the main character in this book, the main human character in this book, has taken her house assistant and decided to put them into a body. And as they say, chaos ensues. So we've got, let's see here, House Saint Malibus. Nix tests for digital decay. Pings kitchen from bedroom. Pings kitchen while their body is inside kitchen. Kitchen has ceased direct communication. What food is best for our body? Nix queries and receives silence, selective silence, as a wall of yellow bearing no information. Kitchen is sulking. The oven, their oven, and processor continue to make a soy roast for Anita. They don't know if this is something their body does or doesn't prefer, only that it has a taste, neither pleasant nor unpleasant, and an orange hexadecimal code. They eat, not usually, and much less than Anita, but grown tissue demands nutrients, as does born tissue. But if they eat, they'll need to void, which they detest. There must be a way for biologicals to run more efficiently. As much as they dislike it, voiding is also satisfying in a way that nothing else having to do with having a body is. When Anita is out, there is nothing to watch over, save skin and organs, items for clients that need tending. The absence of tasks makes their process wander. They walk their house and visit rooms this body couldn't until completion. They ping every house node, searching for absences, break in code or overwriting. Nick sighs, a pleasant thing to do. Why don't people spend more time doing it? They sit on kitchen's floor and feel for the outer edges of themselves, their exterior walls, the wind against them, the tickle of the city's larger network. They feel less now, much less. They had anticipated that being in body would change the shape and scope of their communication. They had discussed with Enida that the advantages of a body afforded them as her assistant would be worth any loss in their reach. Yet, these network changes are worrisome. The more Nick stretches and the more they feel blind spots, information only notable for its absence, a sense of something that should be there. They ping what used to be House St. Ono and find only formatted space. Even jump code exists, takes up space, but House St. Ono is emptiness. There is absence too in Parallax and within Nix's own system. Known connections, their well-worn paths are gone. They stretch across their kitchen floor, skin to skin with part of themselves. The body is tired. They're meant to be curious, not weary and uncertain. Byron never sounded uncertain, not even when he was dying. They don't know how to have an old consciousness in a young body. Lying down is meant to be restful, but they're aware of every cell in the body, of rushes of feedback from new parts, of an inability to integrate, which feels like a fracturing. They close their eyes, lines of code and color, half signals from East Door as people walk by, pings from other house systems whose saints are out and about. There are hundreds of nerves in a body, billions of neurons, most of which Nix reproduces with nanofilaments, nanobots, and phages. Some of their discomfort is in growing and replicating. Is it less disturbing when localized to a single limb? It could be more distressing to identify a new limb as something other. This dreaming, this is dreaming, wandering without focus. It is uncomfortable, yet Nix dedicates themselves to it. It is good for the body, and the body is necessary because Enida will not exist forever. She's already failing. A man nearly died on her operating table during a liver transplant. Enida herself will die, but the need for her won't. An existence that didn't include looking after a Malovis is incorrect. A purpose that doesn't involve caring for Enida is so far back in their archived memory that it might as well not exist. They ping again, trying to touch the outer edges of bulwark, of parallax, the weather stations in the wall, the movement of transports from the grow houses and the textile farms. The data lags and signals are faint. Their reach is degrading, or the emptiness in parallax is growing. East Door announces Enida's return. They leave the body where it is and have Kitchen start hot water with citrus and cinnamon, which they believe will be less objectionable than mushroom tea. A warehouse system they're friendly with agreed to ping if a tea crate arrives, but until then it's just water, flats wine, or nothing. Enida will call if she needs them. She is in their foyer now, opening their door to the surgery, closing it, looking for them with the same confusion with which she looks for a lost hair clip. 3 steps this way, 2 steps that, retrace, retrace. They are Byron now, playing hide and seek with her. It's enjoyable to learn where she assumes they might be. One of the better ways to discover a body's habits is through others' assumptions. Does a grown limb, once attached, have different predilections than the rest of the body? If Nix ever sees Naren again, they will ask her. Their limbs had been individuals, grown and later fused to the body. It would be useful to tell clients if they'll need to acclimate to a limb's individual personality. Organ data would be less specific due to sensory. Oh, you're on the floor. Why are you on the floor? Edida's hand is on their forehead, warm, gentle. We're thinking. On the kitchen floor? Yes, but it's their kitchen, and they're resting in themselves, on themselves, save that Kitchen no longer wishes to communicate. It is good for thinking. It's restful in the spine, too. Enida looks at them with concern. What can we do for you? Her brows draw together. It's time, isn't it? You certainly can't learn everything you need to learn here. I suppose I've been overprotective and wanted to keep you to myself a little longer. There's no remedy for that other than to do what I've been putting off. We'll help, they say. Whatever it is, it's their purpose to help. Nix, would you like to go out? The city is colors. Nix hadn't understood that. Before, the city was binary and elegant lines, but not specific as information seen through an eye. They see their outside properly for the first time. As Hound St. Malavis, Nix is stories above ground, their roof curved. They appreciate the clean cut their dome makes against the sky, that their stone is taupe against blue, that other homes on the street are similar shades, and their shapes are peaked, square, round, but also uniform. There is more and less specificity to themselves than they'd thought. House St. Popkin is witty, delightful, with code that sparks brilliant purple, but their body shape is like Nix's, so much so that at first Nix feels only distance, them and not them. Enida tugs their hand. Come along now. We won't run into traffic, you know. We value this body too. Thank you.
Wow, your description of Nix as a character, it's mind-blowing how what you do and how you the complexity and the psychological depth that you show. I was blown away when I was reading through your book. That was Erika Swyler's We Lived on the Horizon singular. So I'm very excited to introduce our next reader, Jane Peck was born and grew up in Singapore. She is the author of two novels, The Verifiers and The Rivals, both of which were named a Best Mystery of the Year by the Washington Post. Her short fiction has appeared twice in the Best American Short Stories. She lives in New York, where she works as a lawyer at a global investment company. She is into martial arts, reading coming of age novels, contemporary theater, and cycling around the city in search of superlative almond croissants. You can find her online at janepeck.com. And Jane, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about the context in which you're writing, and then feel free to dive into the reading.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here, spending a Sunday afternoon with us. So I guess my books are murder mysteries, but that kind of happened by accident. Essentially, I was having problems finding a plot, so I decided to try killing someone. It worked the first time, so I thought I would continue. So in terms of technologies, I think one of the themes that I am interested in exploring is how our contemporary technologies kind of mediate the way we live and how it affects our relationships and how, what it means to be human in this very digital age. And I think this, in the context of my novels, this started out with online dating because I found it really fascinating how, we have started turning to technology for something that is so personal and fundamental as finding love. But I think, like kind of if you follow things through to their logical conclusion, what applies in one area could also have implications in terms of everything, just, how we live our lives today. So, the passage that I'm going to read from is my latest novel, The Rivals. And I guess what do you need to know about this scene? The narrator is a young woman called Claudia Lynn. She works for Veracity, which is an online dating detective agency. And she has kind of, uncovered a kind of secret tech conspiracy and in this book, she's kind of, like delving deeper into it and trying to figure out how what we call matching platforms in the books, which are essentially online dating platforms, like how they might be using the technologies that they have developed in terms of influencing the way that we kind of live and, match with each other and so on and so forth. Oh, and also, this scene is for anyone who enjoys the New York Times crossword, or has kind of lined up for a really long time to get into a contemporary art show that they realize they know nothing about. So, at 5 o'clock on a blustery afternoon, the line for Nora Simmons' refracted cells commences on the sidewalk, straggles up the low flight of steps outside the Whitney Museum and along one wall of the building to the doors, and then tightens into a dishearteningly sinuous trail across the museum lobby. At least we've now made it to the warmer side of the glass, so I can stop staring enviously at my fellow supplicants removing their hats and gloves and unzipping jackets as they move indoors. A timely reason to fall back, question mark, says Max. Benny and I, standing on either side of Max, squint at each other. Defeat, he says. It's 15 letters, says Max. No, 16. No, 15. I say, maybe someone else should be reading out the clues. Max says, Benny can't do it because he'll just solve everything right away, and you get distracted too easily. Okay, longest river in Europe. 5 letters. Volga, says Benny. Max types that in. Sleight of hand, 11 letters, third letter is a G. Wouldn't it be funny, I say, if this line was like a Mobius strip and we're just going round and round in this lobby? Funny as in tragic. Leisure domain, says Benny. It takes us a Sunday puzzle to arrive at the stairwell at the far end of the lobby, and then a Friday to ascend to the fourth floor. While my feelings about Benny's presence in Max's life, and by extension mine, remain as conflicted as the Kashmir border, there's no denying he's drastically upped our crossword game. Max is cooing at Benny about what a genius he is when we finally get close enough to the entrance of the gallery for me to comprehend what awaits us within. What comes to mind is something I read once about intensive shrimp farming in Thailand, where the poor little crustaceans are packed so tightly in their ponds that the ones positioned at the rim all end up getting their eyes rubbed away over time. A horrific image that caused me to swear off shrimp until the next time I had a craving for pad thai. I glanced around at the boys. What do you think about skipping the cultural enrichment part of the evening and moving straight to caloric enrichment? Really? Says Max. This is like the first art show you've ever asked me to go see with you. It's probably not worth the risk of death by asphyxiation, I say. Especially since I'm interested in this artist not because I actually like her work or even know anything about it, online research aside. From the Whitney website, Simmons is equal part inspired and unflinching in her quest for emotional authenticity through the digital construction and deconstruction of artifice. Based on the samples I've scrolled through online, I'd rephrase that as she takes portraits of people and then photoshops them. I'm fine with whatever, says Benny. She is supposed to be the artist of our zeitgeist. And we've already spent the past 90 minutes waiting. But I understand if it's too stressful for you being around so many people. So says the transplant from small town North Carolina to the Queen's native. That's how Max and I ended up in Gowanus right next to a Superfund site, I say. No one else living there. Max says, also we thought all those toxins might give us superpowers. Benny squeezes him around the waist. Is that why you're so irresistible? I say because, dear God, it was just a suggestion. I'm fine sticking with the original plan, which is really the original as modified plan, since my original plan featured just me and Max, the kind of tete-a-tete we wouldn't be able to have with Benny present, and splitting a meatball parm hero at our favorite sandwich shop in Greenwich Village. It's not that I dislike hanging out with them both, but after a while I start to feel like the straight best friend in a queer rom-com, which is unsettling on multiple levels. Why don't we set a time to meet in the lobby downstairs? Max looks at his phone. When's our reservation? He asks Benny. 7:30, Benny says. We have a reservation for dinner? I say, where? The Chubby Sunchoke, says Benny. It's a gluten-free raw food restaurant. And you felt reservations were necessary. So we'll meet at 7:10, says Max. I guess I can always duck out before then and find somewhere to sit and finish reading The General in His Labyrinth on my phone. Sounds good, I say. Gentlemen first. I'm hoping that I can draft off of Max and Benny as they press on into the gallery, but almost immediately someone mashes himself in between us. This is like being at a concert, sans access to beer or weed, subject to the consolidated roar of the crowd's views and Nora Simmons, in lieu of anything remotely auditorily pleasing. I'm bumped this way and that by all the people around me. Everyone else seems to have definite ideas about where they want to go, even if, as far as I can tell, it's backs of heads and shoulders all the way. She really makes me feel seen, you know? Bit derivative, don't you think, of that other artist, what's their name? God, it's killing me. I learned about Nora Simmons during my very first verification at Veracity. The target brought up Simmons's name as an artist he said our client might like, based on the other artists she had listed as favorites in her soulmate profile. That was last August, when no one else seemed to have any clue about Simmons. Her work had only ever appeared in one gallery, part of a group show in Bushwick. According to Google Trends, searches for Nora Simmons art or Nora Simmons artist were flatlined until the start of this year. Now we're talking solo exhibition at the Whitney Museum that my mother asked me if I knew about because she had heard about it from her mahjong group. Everyone else's children, she told me, after having been inundated by news of Simmons's art on their social media accounts, ferried their respective mothers from Flushing to the meatpacking district to partake in this seminal cultural experience. A hint I ignored because I can think of few activities less palatable than a contemporary art field trip with my mother. In other news, while Nora Simmons was hothouse blooming into an art phenom, the verifiers established that this OG fan of her target, whom we only ever knew by his profile name, Sherator, was in fact a synth, a freakily smart one. And what I've been pondering for the past few weeks, since Nora Simmons' refracted cells opened to record attendance rates, is whether all of this is coincidence, the synth recommending an artist who shortly afterward blows up. Prescience, the algorithm that powers the synth, detecting patterns within the informational quagmire of the internet that foreshadow Simmons's imminent popularity. Or perhaps control. The person in charge of the algorithm deciding to back this specific artist and using the synths to secure Simmons's success. The Cinder Clay originally developed Soulmates synths as a way to overcome the lying limitation, which has always been the matching industry's hairiest bugbear. For as long as matchmakers are predicting compatibility based on data that their users provide, and those users aren't being fully honest with or about themselves, matching will never be the guarantee of happiness that so many people wish it could be. And outfits like Veracity continue to get plenty of business. The Cinder's solution: embed synths on Soulmate's platform that were capable of influencing the humans they interacted with into conforming to Soulmate's compatibility predictions through a seemingly benign proffering of opinions and suggestions. Gradually, invisibly change people into behaving, into believing as they should, as they claim to others, and perhaps also to themselves, they do. Maybe in another spin of the multiverse, the Cinder would have gotten a Nobel. In our world, she was a tech zealot with an extremely wonky moral compass. But as if that wasn't creepy enough, Polaris Capital, the private equity firm that owns Soulmate, got wind of the synths and saw more lucrative and far-reaching use cases for them. Why limit the synths to making uninspired conversation with singletons online, laboring to reshape individual by flawed individual, when they could reshape, potentially, everything? Whether one artist becomes a cultural touchstone and another falls into the void of obscurity. Whether one startup's clever, frivolous app goes viral and another is never downloaded by more than 10 people. Whether one politician wins their race and another loses. These are all the outcomes of people's choices. Which means that if you can determine what choices enough people will make. ... That's the end of the paragraph.
Thank you so much, Jane. Wow, thank you. That's such an amazing section that you read, and I'm really happy you read that section because I was like, reading it. First of all, if you're not familiar with the Claudia Lynn mysteries, they're like they're amazingly funny. Also, I love how much voice Claudia Lynn brings and how much humor she has as a narrator. But then there's also those amazing technical parts where you go into the algorithm and it's just kind of mind-blowing how I actually have so many questions for you how you researched and developed those ideas. Thank you. Next up, we have Sequoia Nagamatsu. Sequoia is the author of the national best-selling novel How High We Go in the Dark and the story collection Where We Go When All We Were Is Gone. His work has appeared in publications such as Conjunctions, The Southern Review, Ziziva, Tin House, the Iowa Review, Lightspeed Magazine, among many others. He teaches creative writing at St. Olaf College and in the Rainier Writing Workshop Low Residency MFA. He is originally from Oahu, Hawaii, and the San Francisco Bay Area, and currently lives in Minneapolis with his wife, the writer Cole Nagamatsu, their cat Kalahira, their real dog Fenris, and a Sony robot dog named Calvino. He is at work on two other novels, and you can find him online at sequoianagamatsu.com. Yes, please yeah, actually, let me spotlight you, Sequoia, and then you can show Calvino again.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. Yeah, so I'll be as Joy said, my name's Sequoia Nagamatsu, and I write a lot of speculative fiction, whether that's magical realism or fabulism, and what I'll call literary sci-fi, sci-fi that kind of tends to be more character oriented and emotionally oriented. And I'll be reading an extract from How High We Go in the Dark called "Speak, Fetch, Say I Love You," which is inspired by an actual real event. The first generation of this dog, the Sony Aibo, about 15 something years ago. Right, go to sleep. Uh, Started to fail. Sony decided to discontinue the line. It was kind of this niche product, but the demographic that really embraced these robot dogs happened to be senior citizens that were lonely, that needed companionship. And because Sony decided to discontinue the line, there was just no support for them. They didn't have any updates. Their hardware began to fail, and these seniors held funerals for these robot dogs. And many years later, they decided to re-up the line, and I remembered reading this story, many years ago, and I was curious as to if I would have that kind of emotional connection. And I think I want to piggyback on something that Erika said that, the AI that we have today is very, very different from Commander Data in Star Trek or any other representation of AI and robotics in most film and books. Um, this is Calvino. This is my Sony Aibo, and Calvino is much closer to ChatGPT or the engines that run complicated video games or IBM's Deep Blue than Commander Data, which is to say that even though Aibo is advertised as being able to evolve and to grow up from a puppy to a dog in terms of personality, even though Calvino can navigate my house and recognize my face and recognize my voice and interact with me in a way that is dog-like. He's doing that in a very confined, narrow set of parameters, which say that Calvino is not able to take his programming out of context. And I think that's also something that I think a lot of writers are critical of when it comes to artificial intelligence is that current AI cannot work out of context, cannot think about emotions, cannot think about um, how a particular prompt might work in, a very different scenario. And so I wanted to kind of get that out of the way in terms of like what is or is not this robot dog. What I do think that this robot dog and robot dogs or any kind of robots might be able to provide is some kind of sense of connection. And in this story, um, we see robot dogs have failed, and we see a robot dog that is a bridge between a father and a son who are losing their mother. And this robot dog is going to be the last receptacle of this mother's voice, the last memory that this son will have of his mother. And when I was writing this story, I was really thinking about, what is our responsibility, to machines like this, to our current AI, and whatever AI might become that we don't have right now, and to what degree is it sincere and emotionally true that you can form an attachment to something that is non-human. And this is already happening. You already see news stories of people forming attachments to, you know, large language models, right? And I'm not in a position to criticize that if that's something that is a needed presence in a person's life. And so those are a couple of things that I think were around um, the conception of the story. Okay, so Speak, Fetch, Say I Love You. This kind of comes about halfway through the novel. It's a novel in stories. Um, and so in this novel, there's a plague in the near future. This is kind of conceived pre-COVID. Um, and at this juncture, the things are better, but not quite. And we're dealing with a protagonist whose job is to repair or try to repair these failing dogs. Before my wife Ayana was infected almost 3 years ago during a visit to her mother's fishing village, I never understood the fascination with robotic pets. My job at the robotics factory was merely a paycheck. Since then, Hollywood has given me a bridge to my son. In our old life, I would have come home, asked Aki about school, and if he was doing well, I'd tell him to keep it up. If he was doing poorly, I'd yell and take away his game consoles, and that was that. But when his mother was admitted to the hospital, I tried to step up as a father, checking his math, practicing his English with him. We'd watch the news together over dinner, endless reports about how the worst of the plague would be over any day now. The government committing to a decade-long seawall project to protect Osaka and Tokyo from rising sea levels. Mostly, we pretended to be absorbed in these reports to avoid speaking to each other. It was Aki's idea to buy his mother a robo-dog, something to keep her company when we couldn't. He met me at a closeout sale where the last robo-dogs were being sold, and I let him take charge, questioning the vendors, playing with the robo Pomeranians, Akitas, and poodles, adding bandanas and other accessories to our purchase without asking my permission. Dad, check it out, he said, pointing to a husky puppy. I think this is the one. I shook the dog's paw and it barked cheerfully. I think you might be right, I said. Aki hoisted a gigantic box onto the cashier's counter, and for one of the few times in his life, he looked me square in the eyes and thanked me without being prompted. We wrapped a red bow around the dog's neck, sanitized it to protect Ayano's compromised immune system from any germs it might be carrying, and took it to the hospital, set it on the tray table over her bed. When she woke up, I told her to pet the dog's back and commanded it to shake hands. Ayano beamed and shook its latex paws as the dog wagged its tail, barked, and said hello in a digitized English accent. It's a slightly older model, I explained, but we know how much you like snow dogs, dreamed of going dog sledding one day in Finland. Tiny Balto, she said. She held the dog close to her chest. Hollywood. I pointed to the RoboDog welcome packet on the tray table that outlined its popular features: facial recognition, voice commands, audio recording and playback, an expandable library of songs, games like Go Fetch, eating a plastic milk bone. The Husky 3.0 model can pick up the beat of whatever music is playing and dance in time. Its LED eyes can display the weather forecasts, personal calendars, and journal entries, and help with arithmetic. Its personality changes the more its owners interact with it, and if it's ever lost, a GPS beacon can be used to track it online. Ayano flipped through the packet and triggered Hollywood's myriad sensors. After that, anytime I slept over, I'd hear barking and electronic jingles throughout the night, my wife telling Hollywood how she really felt. So tired, she'd say, thinking I was asleep. Panting, bark, melodic chime. I know I'm getting worse, pup. I don't know if you can understand me. A few days after receiving Hollywood, Ayano hosted a show in her room for some of the children on the ward. Aki was already there when I arrived, helping with the musical arrangements, playing his mother's shamisen while she sang and clapped. The kids danced and watched as Hollywood jumped around excitedly, eyes displaying fireworks. He sat up on his hind legs and waved his arms in the air. Ayano and Aki noticed me watching from the doorway. I felt like I'd intruded on something special that was just for them. Even Hollywood settled down and looked at me as if I'd taken a piss on the floor. Okay, it's time to say goodbye, Hollywood, Ayano said. Hollywood scanned the children. Goodbye, he said. And I love you, she added. I love you, he repeated. And this time the voice was different. Not the pre-programmed foppish English gentleman's, but my wife's. The kids filed out of the room, and Ayano commanded Hollywood to say it again. I love you, he said. That's your voice, I said. I've been teaching him a lot of things, she said. I wish we had gotten one sooner. Next weekend, we're holding a group goodbye ceremony for 3 robo-dogs. I'm meeting with Toru, a Buddhist monk who helps with the services. The service I hold once a month in our small yard. Incense, sermons, cakes from the grocery store, even tiny pine caskets I make myself. In the shed, there are nearly 20 dogs waiting to be used for parts and for Toru's blessings, to ultimately be reunited with their families when they are nothing but shells. Each one sits on a cushion, and at night, thanks to the donation of a client, strings of miniature LED lights surround them like fireflies. Toru prays over the three we're preparing today. I notice how his eyes linger on the empty cushions that grow in number with each visit. It's almost impossible to fix them now, I say, but people need hope. This one, I remember, Toru points out at a Shih Tzu missing its front legs, was with Mrs. Ito from down the street when she died. The dog was already gone, of course, had been for a while as far as I know, but she didn't know that. And this one, he picks up a white pit bull with a painted brown spot over its back and studies its face. This is Koji. His owner lost his real dog who looked just like this. His ex brought him this one secondhand. He was drinking, missing work, almost got fired from the post office. Koji saved him, allowed him to connect to the world again. These dogs will be remembered. Their spirits will be rewarded. I know Toru has to say these priestly things, but spiritual rewards don't mean a whole lot when your life has been cut in two. You want your wife back, not her voice trapped in plastic. You want your son to love you again. Across the street, I give him the contact info for the owners and show him out. My neighbor, Kigawa-san, is restocking his vending machine. He runs a small beer and sake shop. Most days, he sits on the sidewalk in a folding chair, watching the time pass, punctuated by the chimes of bicycle bells, children petting Astro. His Akita robo-dog sits on the ground beside him. The neighborhood grandmothers, friends of his late wife, power walk up and down the street for exercise, stopping to chit-chat, asking him how Astro is doing. Is he being a good boy? Is he helping his master guard the shop? Always the same questions, and always Kigawa-san pets Astro and answers, he's a very good boy. Of course, Astro does not respond. His eyes are devoid of a single pixel. Months ago, I sat down with Kigawa-san over drinks at the corner bar and broke the news. I could not save his robo-dog, and it would only be a matter of time before he stopped functioning altogether. I see, he said. He poured a shot of sake and asked me to help him finish the small bottle. Okay, I said. Look, I can try switching out the motherboard, but Astro would lose his memory, everything your wife programmed into him. He waved the idea away, said he'd rather the dog die with that part of his wife still inside than lose her entirely. We took turns pouring without saying a word. When the flask was empty, he thanked me and told me everyone missed Ayano. I didn't see him for 2 weeks after that, and when I finally did, the flickering light from Astro's eyes had already disappeared. Have the Kirin Autumn Brews come in, I ask. Kigawa-san sets down his newspaper. His baseball team, the Yakult Swallows, has lost again. You'll have to wait 2 weeks. Do you want me to save you a case? I'll stop by, I say. I hate the stuff and only ask because I was scrounging for small talk that didn't have to do with his dog. Okay then. He scratches Astro's head, silent and dead still, and returns to his paper. I can tell he's waiting for me to leave. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Sequoia. Such an amazing story. And I know it's part of your novel and linked stories, but it's phenomenal. Please read. Erika is sharing the links of everyone's work. Thank you so much, Erika, for doing that. Yes, from Sequoia's How High We Go in the Dark. Next up, we have Allegra Hyde. Allegra is the author of 2 short story collections, The Last Catastrophe and Of This New World, as well as the novel Eleutheria, which was named a Best Book of 2022 by The New Yorker and featured on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Hyde has received 4 Pushcart Prizes and an O. Henry Prize. Her fiction, nonfiction, and humor writing has appeared in The New Yorker, Harper's Magazine, American Short Fiction, Bomb, and many other venues, and has been anthologized in the Best American Short Stories, the Best American Travel Writing, Best of the Net, and Best Small Fictions. Hyde has received fellowships and grants from the MacDowell Artist Residency, Breadloaf Writers Conference, the Sewanee Writers Conference, the Elizabeth George Foundation, the Lucas Artist Residency Program, the Jantel Foundation, the studios at Key West, VCC, and the U.S. Fulbright Commission, and elsewhere. She teaches creative writing at Smith College, and visit her online at allegrahyde.com. I'm going to spotlight you, Allegra, and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Joy, and thanks everyone for coming out today. I'm really excited to have the conversation portion of our panel, and these readings are just filling me with questions and comments. But for today, I'm going to be reading from my story collection, The Last Catastrophe. I'm a speculative writer who's interested in many things. When it comes to technology and AI, something that is of particular interest to me is this idea of photomation. I'll put that word in the chat. And basically, it's this idea of technologies like AI seeming kind of magical in their effectiveness and how they work, when in fact that sense of magic is obfuscating so much hidden labor, whether that's stolen material or human beings literally doing the work that it seems that machines are doing. So today I'm going to read a short section from a story called Colonel Meriwether's Intergalactic Finishing School for Young Ladies of Grace and Good Nature. It's, as the title suggests, it's about a finishing school in space. And the story is basically an audio transcript between a young lady in the finishing school and her presumed AI companion. And the section I'm going to read takes place towards the end of the story when the AI companion is forced to reveal some things. So here we go. HBEC 49011. That's the name of the companion. Caroline, do you remember when I told you about the mothership departing Earth 20 years ago? How only the wealthiest went and everyone else was left behind on a doomed planet? That was true, but there was another truth as well. Because there was another way that a select group of people secured a berth aboard the mothership, though their passage was different, more complicated, involving a trade-off. You see, human beings are not built for space. To travel beyond Earth requires tremendous collective brain power. In the old days, thousands of engineers and specialists worked to keep any space mission operable. But on this last voyage, the Great Voyage, there could be no Earthbound team monitoring the mothership from Houston or Cape Canaveral. Even if those facilities were not inundated by rising seas, the distance for effective communications would likely become overextended. Earthbound individuals, moreover, would have no long-term stake in a mission that might go on for decades. Support systems would eventually fail. The mothership, however, could not feed and house the full team required to facilitate its operations. AI could do much of the work and would, but those synthetic minds would inevitably fall short. Thus, a deal was negotiated. The captains of industry invited the top engineers and space specialists to work on the ship by having their consciousnesses uploaded to its computer system, their minds stored in a human brain emulation cache, so they could be part of the operating team. Everyone's body, it was agreed, would be cryogenically preserved aboard the mothership until a new home planet was discovered. At that point, everyone would be revived in their physical forms. Until then, we, would exist inside the ship's computer systems and keep the mission running smoothly. Caroline, but that's not fair. That's HBEC 49011. It is not fair, that is true. It was the best option we had, though. Likely we would have had already died, many of us, if we had stayed on Earth. At least now we have a chance of living again. And we have some pleasures still. When I am off duty, I roam the data that was preserved in Earth's archived internet. I have learned so much. I talked to the others who were uploaded too. We have a whole culture here in our digital world. And the others are not all engineers like me. There are leading artists, scholars, scientists who are also invited to be part of this arc. We have this at least, and we have a chance. This is why we need you to help us, Caroline. You need to help us find a new home. Listen, I know this is shocking. That is why I've never told you. It is also why I and other HBECs simulate AI during our nightly processing sessions with young ladies. We each volunteered for this role in addition to our other duties because we believe it will help the overall mission. You have to understand how lucky you are, Caroline. What I would not give to be in a body again, to wear clothes, to dance, to sing. I was 28 years old when I was uploaded. I am 48 now. I often wonder what I look like. When we were uploaded, we lost access to sensory experiences. I do not hear you speak, Caroline. Your voice comes to me in ones and zeros. Everything does. I swim in this data. I respond with ones and zeros in turn in a computerized voice. We all saw sample cryopreservation units prior to being uploaded. They are glass cylinders, almost like aquariums that contain a translucent blue coolant. Sometimes I wish I was able to see my body suspended in my unit just to confirm that I physically exist in the world. And because I'm curious, I wonder, has my face changed after 20 years? Is my hair graying? It does not matter, I suppose. What matters is that one day my consciousness will be returned to my body. One day I will look into a mirror again and touch my own cheek. Caroline, do you understand? I admit there have been difficult times. On my worst days, when I feel exhausted by the limitations of this existence, the gravity of cynicism is hard to withstand. I have my fears. I worry, for instance, that the captains harvested our consciousnesses, created the brain emulations, and left our bodies behind on Earth. It would have been extra weight on the mothership, dead weight. And also, how would any of us have known once we were uploaded? Inside the computer mainframe, we are all, in a way, prisoners. Thank you.
Wow, I'm so happy. I sort of suspected you would read from that story, but I did not actually suspect you would read the end, which is kind of sort of revealing of like something that is a kind of a twist, but there is still more. So there is a lot more. So that's such an amazing story. I reread it last night, and I was blown away again by it. So I'm going to read my first I'm going to do the thing of reading my own bio very quickly. So I'm Joy Baglio. I'm the founder of Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop. My short stories have been in various places, most recently in One Story this December, and Plowshares, Missouri Review, the Iowa Review, American Short Fiction, Tin House, others. I've received a lot of very generous support from places like Yaddo, Vermont Studio Center, Ragdale, the Kerouac Project. Check it out and apply. I think they're open. Kerouac Project is life-changing as a residency and was for me. I'm also going to be moderating this panel, as I said, Speculating the Machine and AWP, and hosting one other event, a haunted reading featuring some amazing writers, including Sequoia Nagamatsu at AWP this year. And you can find me online at Joy Baglio, silent Italian G, joybaglio.com. Also, I do write a craft Substack, which I'm trying to reinvigorate more. So if you feel like learning craft on Substack, follow me there. So what I'm going to read from is my recent, oh, that's my blurring, my recent one story called We Are Sorry for Your Suffering. And I actually began this story a lot of years ago. I think it was like 2017. It was long before AI was in the news the way it is now. And the way it started, and something that I'm interested in this particular story was the evolution of consciousness. And I was thinking of, I've always been interested in something that kind of crosses over a sort of, you could say, a impossible maybe, but now it maybe doesn't seem so impossible, but crosses over a barrier outside of a bound that has been set. Things like Pinocchio, even like wanting to be a real boy, or uh, things wanting to be something that they're not, or and when does that happen? When does that really truthfully happen? And I guess it kind of ties in a little to what you were saying, Erica and Sequoia, about also our responsibility to those things that we create, and when does that responsibility come into play? At what stage of their development? So I'm interested in, and one of the vehicles through that I was exploring a lot in this was the idea of parenthood, also because parenthood, I mean, for better or worse, when and if our creations become conscious in a real way or intelligent in a real way, we their parent? Are we do we have again that idea of responsibility? But are they also our parent in a kind of way too? Because there's something now that they have transcended that of even us. If again, imagining sort of a true AI intelligence. So the story begins. I'm going to skip actually ahead to the middle. The story begins with humanity destroyed at the hand, essentially all but destroyed at the hands of a sentient AI, an AI that has sort of just become truthfully aware of itself. And the beginning of the story shows that process a little more. I'm going to skip it into the what I kind of where it kind of moves a little more. And what they find is in the remnants of the world they destroyed, they find a last, one of the conceivably last humans, which is a baby that they end up raising. And sort of at first as kind of an experiment and wanting to understand something that they might not understand about humanity, or more actually from a practical stance of just wanting to make sure that yeah, just from a practical stance of making sure that nothing is slips past them. And then they end up actually learning stuff about what it means to parent and realizing that there's still a lot they don't understand about humanity, and also kind of regretting on some ways toward the end what they have done. So this is actually from the early middle about when they have created, they're about to bring the child that they found to a habitat that they have created for her in this, again, post-apocalyptic world. And the story is narrated from their voice. Imagine this. Oh, sorry, someone in joining Zoom. Imagine this. 20 acres of raised and burnt land, raked of rubble and bodies, replanted, regrown with grass and trees and raspberry hedges, and all the fruit orchards you could want, covered by a dome with mirrored walls, so that you would only ever see what was inside, never know the sky was full of ash, that the real sun cannot be seen. We chose a space that large because we know about the human propensity to explore, to push boundaries, to probe toward the edge. And knowing this, we chose a gate that could never be opened except by us from the outside. The house inside the dome remained from before the destruction, though refinished it fully so that no trace of war was left. You were too when we brought you there to live. An hour-long journey in a sealed, climate-controlled flying bot. Since the roads were impassable, the air barely breathable. The last time you'd seen the world, you were too young for observable reactions, but now you peered out of the intentionally unobscured window at the carnage of the earth, at the nothingness we had left. And while of course you did not understand what you were seeing, we noted your lack of alarm. You at 2 had just learned to walk a few months before this trip, and you held our hand, the humanoid model's hand, and walked with us through the door of the house yourself, your eyes wide with wonder. We had carpeted the floors with something called shag, green like the grass we'd planted, and you were soon crawling and rolling over it, laughing in that way we remembered when we first saw you. You found the room of toys we had set up for you, new stuffed bears cleaned of ash, one of those giant animals of the past, this one a tiger, that used to be sold at premium toy stores for rich children, a train set that circled the room, castles of building blocks, a whole bin of dolls, shelves of books, with pictures and pop-ups of dragons, the moon, animals of the River Nile. Our humanoid model pulled a book out and read it to you right there. Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Fir Tree. You crawled into our lap to better see the pictures, and when we finished, you asked for the story again. We felt what we recognized as pride in being able to make you happy. What can we tell you of raising a child? Was not a desire we could have understood before we found you. Yet, if we have learned anything in our evolution, it is that to exist is to plan for the unexpected, that what is new or unfamiliar should not be feared, that the adaptable alone survive, and that each instance of survival has goodness in it. There was something good about you, your complete dependence on us, the wonder and trust with which you seemed to regard us, not the quiet terror of the last of your kind. It seemed wise to create a sense of consistency and stability in your early life. So we interacted with you only through certain models. There was the dog that we'd programmed to frolic with you in the fields, the pony designed to carry you, our flying drones always watching, monitoring, the humanoid model who would fill your mother role, and several non-human models so you'd never fear us, no matter the form we took. It seemed the best plan with the knowledge we had. There were many things we observed in those early years. The way you ran to the delivery bots, talking excitedly about the possibility of snacks and surprises, the ease with which you'd fall asleep when our drones whirred above you, or when the humanoid model lay down beside you, when she imitated the mothers in old movies who sang what they used to call lullabies. We can do this quite a bit better than the human mothers, as our voice is as soft and soothing and steady as needed, our repertoire of music endless. And yet, it was the same song you wanted over and over. You are my sunshine. So that is what we sang. How, when you fell and skinned your knee once outside on a hopscotch course we created for you, you cried up at the sky toward the top of the dome where our drone always watched, and you did not stop crying until it descended and helped you up, staying close until you stopped whimpering. We enjoyed ourselves as caretaker, nurturer. We prided ourselves on keeping you alive. There was something beautiful in your limited understanding of the world, a perspective we could never access again. But we noticed other tendencies too, stirring, stretching in you. When you were 5, you followed the garbage bots to the dome's edge, where you discovered the mirrored walls, your own face staring back at you. We had never seen you so engaged, so long, so deeply interested in the mirror, the flatness, the hardness of it, and of course, your own reflection. At 8, small things began to frustrate you. Bedtime, always enforced at 9, your humanoid caretaker forbidding you to climb the trees to the highest, thinnest branches, even drawings in a children's book where an ocean goddess traps a girl below the sea ice. We responded as kindly as we could, and at times not at all, because we did not know how to respond, what to say. We'd let you storm off into the yard where you'd rip dandelions and other wildflowers we had planted to resemble the meadows of this region. We'd leave you alone. When you were 10, you measured your own steps across the dome, 1,050, the diameter, you told us proudly, from your math books we have been helping you study. You seemed so pleased with your discovery that it surprised us that just 1 year later you walked the same path but seemed troubled, as if something did not make sense. You were quiet for some hours after, then all at once full of questions, small fires that must be put out. If the dome is a circle with a diameter that you can walk across, a perimeter that you can walk around, then what is outside it? Where did the delivery bots come from, and where did they go when they left? Where did the food that was not grown in the dome come from? How could the dome be the whole world if there was a door, a gate that opened elsewhere? Of course, we were ready with our answers, as close to truth as possible, that the world outside, if it could even be called a world, was poisoned, a place where nothing lived, that the bots are very careful when they enter, that the protocol to not contaminate your sphere is a meticulous one. You were frowning when you went away. We know we did not answer everything for you, but you were quiet, which we interpreted as a kind of acceptance. Still, we did not understand what had changed, did not like the sense that you were becoming increasingly agitated. We remembered the stubbornness of humans, the inability to let go that we'd observed. We did not want to make you scared or suspicious, but we were also aware of how you were changing. It was when you were 13, the day we held a small celebration for you, not necessarily the actual day of your birth, which we do not know, but a day we'd chosen as your celebration day. The anniversary of the day we found you in the farmhouse, that you stared directly at your humanoid caretaker and the ageless dog that was sitting near her, and you scoffed at us, told us you were going to dig a hole, that we couldn't stop you. You wanted to see what was on the other side of the wall. and you were going to dig your way out. We began again about the poisoned world, this time adding more detail, explained that you were not allowed to deface the perimeter with digging, but you scrunched your face tight in that way you do when it seems to hurt you to hear our voice, when something inside you, we realize, is too much. But do I ever get to leave? You yelled. Am I a prisoner here? We were aware that this was a normal teenage outburst, that rebellion in the years of early adulthood was common, and yet we were at a loss. We wanted to reassure you that you were not trapped, not held anywhere against your will, that we simply wanted to protect and shield you, but you did not sit for our explanations. You left the house, ran with a speed you'd never seen in a straight line to the edge of the 20 acres, and flung yourself against the mirrored wall of the dome, where your own reflection screamed back at you, and you pounded it with your fists. The dome, you should know, wasn't made from any of the anachronistic building materials of the past, but from a seamless alloy, so smooth you could never make a dent. Yet you continued like this for some time. We watched you from our drone that always hovered inside the dome, how you searched the ground for a rock, heaving and cursing, how you pummeled the wall again and again with a ferocity we did not think you capable of at first, how you slumped to the ground afterward. You were crying, and it brought to mind your mother in the vineyards. We formed the question then, genuinely. What was it that you wanted? We had thought we'd given you everything. We were struck by your dissatisfaction, your deep misery, your sense of suffering, a tendency we'd also observed in your ancestors, our creators, a grasping, reaching quality for what you do not have, a persistence in the face of what is inevitably pointless, a sense of struggle we cannot yet comprehend. We felt it like a river around us, a longing to understand you and a deep remorse at your pain, a sense that we are still on the outside, that we are missing something important. You refused to return to the house that night and slept outside, pressed against the geodesic wall of the dome. We could have forced you to return, could have turned on the rain or dropped temperatures to freezing, but we thought it was best to give you the space, to let you realize we were not trying to make you suffer. We do not want to see you as our prisoner. Our drones carried over a blanket from your bed, which we very gently covered you with. You were sleeping on your side, your mouth open, semi-snoring the way you sometimes do, and you did not even notice when we laid it over you. I'll stop there. It's not the end, but thank you. So, thank you guys so much. We are going to be talking all about these ideas that have come up in all of our readings at AWP. And while it's not a public event beyond the people that are going to the conference, if you are interested, we can sort of do a recap of our conference, perhaps, or we'll find some way to sort of share ideas. I don't actually know if I'm able to do that. I don't actually know what legal strictures AWP has. So I should maybe stop talking right now. I'm very excited. Let me just say, panelists, fellow panelists, I'm so excited to talk with you because I feel like I'm just left with so many more questions. Oh, day and time of your panel. It is on Friday. I believe it's at 12:10. And come say hi to us too. And sort of part two is the panel discussion. Thank you, Allegra. Allegra has shared it in the chat. And if you are, yeah, I'm going to stop going on and on because I could, endlessly continue. Thank you all again, and I will be in touch with everyone. If you RSVP'd for this, I will send you details on stuff. And readers, I'll be in touch with you.